Hi, it's Robin McMahon here. I'm the host of Parenting Our Future. And if you're listening to this podcast, I want to thank you so much for being here. I also want you to know that I am a former angry mom. I used to yell and rage and threaten and punish my kids because I wasn't getting the cooperation or the behavior that I felt I should be getting. And I struggled for many years not knowing how to change or knowing what to do differently. It wasn't until I found the world of peaceful parenting that I learned why my kids acted the way they did, and also why I was so angry and triggered. I was able to heal my anger and leave my triggers behind so that I could focus on being the calm and confident parent I always expected myself to be. I can tell you that feeling connected to your kids is the best feeling in the world. My two boys are teenagers now, and we have a strong relationship that is rooted in deep connection. And where there is connection, there's cooperation. Parenting is the most important job we do, but it's the hardest job we do. And we do it without understanding the fundamentals of the way our kids grow and develop. And we do it without knowing the way their brains work or what their behavior is actually really telling us. So it's no wonder it's so hard. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, this is harder than I thought it would be. And that's where I come in. I can help you and I can support you so that you can have the cooperation and enjoy being a parent. You can book a free call with me on my website, parentingforconnection.com. And if you want to download my free guide, How to Turn a No into Cooperation, go to triggerfreeparents.com. I really hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for listening. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Parenting Our Future. I'm so happy to invite another Robin to the show. Today, I have Robin Taub. She is a money expert, and let me tell you a little bit about her. She's a chartered professional accountant by training and began her career at KPMG and transitioned into real estate and then landed on the trading floor at Citibank Canada. Today, she's a keynote speaker and an award-winning author of the book, The Wisest Investment, teaching your kids to be responsible, independent, and money smart for life. Robin puts her money where her mouth is and has raised two mostly money smart kids. I am so happy to welcome Robin to the show. Robin, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to talk to you.
I'm excited to be here too.
Okay, so we're talking about the talk, but the money talk. And we're talking about how do we talk to our kids about money? What different ages and stages, should we bring up money? How do we talk about it when they're 4 and 5 versus 14 and 15? And so what I want to start by doing is talking about financial literacy. So okay, that's sounds like a lovely thing to say, but what does that actually mean? Can we start there?
Great idea. So it's defined in Canada as having the knowledge, skills, and confidence to make responsible financial decisions at every life stage. So I'll just repeat that again. Knowledge, skills, and confidence to make responsible financial decisions at every life stage.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, there was a task force in Canada on financial literacy back in 2008 or 2009, and it came out of the global financial crisis. And the reason they put this task force together was because the government felt that a financially literate society or population was critical to Canadian economic growth and prosperity.
Oh my goodness, that is just so true. I mean, in fact, every country should have that.
Yes.
Right?
And around the world, there's quite a lot of initiatives, to try and help people just get better with money, because it's hard for a lot of people.
So what are the downfalls? What is it? Credit? Is it debt?
Yeah. I mean, what are the things that people struggle with?
Yeah.
Yes. Some of the things you just mentioned, definitely, using credit maybe liberally and then finding yourselves in debt. And that could be, consumer debt like credit cards, student loan debt is, at levels that we haven't seen before, maybe taking on too much mortgage debt, feeling like you're house poor. So yes, a lot of Canadians and, people around the world struggle with debt management for sure. But I think that being financially literate also means knowing how to make sound decisions with the money you make. I think that's what it all boils down to. So you can stay out of debt, so you can grow your wealth, so that you can, live the life that you want and reach your goals and hopefully have, a comfortable retirement, like all those types of things that are important to us.
Yeah. Okay. So then how do we start talking about this? And before you answer that, we reached a point where we should be talking about money. We should be talking about how much we make. Like it is the ultimate in the taboo subjects, right? Like, are we kind of past that now or?
That's I don't think so. I think in our society as a whole, and especially I would say with the older generations, money is still a taboo topic. And the more money there is, the harder it can be to talk about. But on the other hand, if you're struggling with money and you feel like you're not good at it yourself, then it's also hard to talk about because there's shame and embarrassment that goes with that. So that's one of the barriers or challenges parents have and why they don't talk about it enough with their kids. But what I have noticed is that the younger generation, so let's say Gen Y and Gen Z, they're much more open and transparent about their money. I was just talking to my daughter about this, and she's like a very cuts, like the youngest Gen Y, kind of oldest Gen Z. And she said, like, there's full transparency with her and her friends. With her close friends, they know what each other makes, they know what each other is paying in rent. Like they're very open about it. And I don't remember it being like that when I was growing up.
No, at least we never talked about how much we were making, but we absolutely need to. I think that it holds employers accountable too.
Right. I mean, there's new laws in the US that require employers to post salary ranges now on any job opening. And because there is so much discrimination when it comes to pay, gender discrimination and other types of biases that creep into that process. So yeah, I think more transparency will lead to more equity. But I just found it really interesting. And it could be because they're so used to sharing their lives online that this is just one more thing. But I still think between the parent and the child, or at least my generation, I'm Gen X, boomers, to probably feel a little less comfortable sharing that information. They're not used to it. And it's something they were always taught. It's kind of crass. I think it's crass to talk about money in the sense like where you're bragging, but it's certainly not crass to do it with an educational point of view or perspective.
No, not at all. I think it's helpful to show your kids because I mean, I think it's otherwise they're going to think it's either a bottomless pit, like I've got
exactly.
Yeah, or you have nothing, right? I know my kids have expressed both, like, uh-oh, are we going to be okay? Like, yeah, we're good. Or like, oh, you guys have got, you just spent this much. Oh, you must be rich. You must have tons of money. And we're like, nope. So
exactly. And kids are expressing like what's on their minds. And it's interesting that your kids have and I guess, based on what's going on in the household, they can get even conflicting impressions.
Yeah.
And those are really great openings, those kinds of comments, like, are we rich? Or, just that attitude, like, just go to, just if you say, oh, we can't afford this, and your kids say, well, just go to the bank machine and take out more money. I mean, little kids tend to think that money comes out of a hole in the wall. Those are what I call teachable moments, right? Those opportunities to build a money lesson into your day-to-day life, and just take a sec, take a beat, explain to your kids what's going on. And also find out why they're asking, like when you're like, why, what makes you ask that? If they're saying, are we rich or are we poor? What makes you ask that? Like, what's behind it?
Oh, I love that. I'm all about the asking why, like so much about that. And we do want to know, because what if our child feels insecure? What if they feel unsafe? And when I say insecure, I mean unsafe. So, because that goes through our kids' minds. Our kids are thinking about things, they're noticing things that we may not realize they're noticing, and then they're forming their thoughts and beliefs about that.
Correct.
It could be wrong. So we do need to come in and we do need to start talking about it. So let's talk about the talk. Where do you start? And if we are using those teachable moments, like when they're asking, what do we say? So over to you for all of that.
Okay. So what I like to what I'd like to tell parents is you want to start when your kids are young, ideally.
Okay.
So the reason that you want to start when they're young is because, well, there's a few reasons. The way I like to think about approaching this vast topic of money and personal finance is with 5 pillars of money. So 5 essential building blocks. And those 5 pillars are earn. That's the most important one because you have to earn money first.
Okay.
And then once you earn it, there's 4 things you can do with it. You can save it, you can spend it, you can share it, or you can invest it for the long haul. So that's what I call the 5 pillars of money: earn, save, spend, share, and invest.
Okay.
And the 5 pillars never change, but the specific topics and examples and family discussions and actions do as your kids get older and move through these 4 stages that I use in my book that are young children, 5 to 8, preteens, 9 to 12, teenagers, 13 to 17, and emerging adults, 18 and up. So if you think about the 5 pillars, any specific topic will fit under one of those 5. And then the idea is start young and keep building on it. Because the stuff that you share with a 7-year-old is going to be very different than a 17-year-old. And it's really important to share age appropriate information because if it's too, if it's above where they are at now, it just won't be meaningful. You need to share information in financial literacy that is relevant to the decisions and the stage of their life that they're at, like just in time information almost, maybe looking just a little bit ahead. So, and then stress confidentiality. So you don't want to make money taboo within your own family, but you don't want them sharing everything on, for example, social media.
Yeah.
So, just stressing that still, these are some of this is private family information, just stays within cone of silence.
I like that. Okay. I like that. That's a good idea. That's a good, because you never know what they say to people. And, so one of the things that we did when our kids were little and we started paying them allowance, which those days are gone now, but we would have 3 piggy banks. One was to save, one was to spend, and the other was for charity. And it was actually really fun because, we gave them their money, but we had it in small denominations. So toonies for those Canadians out there. And then we would split it up in the different piggy banks. And then at the end of the year, we would go and we would donate the money and bring the kids with us. And we donated to Ronald McDonald House one year. And we did and it was just really fun. They gave us a big giant check too, so we could have a family picture. It was a
cool
special time, right?
Yeah, I love Ronald McDonald House.
Yeah, they're amazing.
It's such an amazing charity. But I feel like you just took a page right out of my book because that's exactly what I say. And in fact, your kids are older now, but now they might not have had this, but there's a multi-slotted piggy bank. So it's one piggy bank, yes, with 4 different slots, and the slots are save, spend, donate, and invest. So now you don't have to have 3 separate ones or 4 separate ones. You can have it all in one, but you can still take out just that specific allocation. And exactly what you said, if you have cash, and cash is still the best way to teach young kids. It's tangible and concrete and easy for them to understand. And then they can, in loonies and toonies, they can make those allocations fairly easily. Yeah. So yeah, that's an amazing way to introduce those money choices and at that age. And then obviously once they outgrow piggy bank, then you're into things like youth accounts and student accounts. But one other thing, Robin, I wanted to mention was that another reason to start early is so your kids can make mistakes when the stakes are low and learn, right? You want them to have, you're laughing because your kids have probably made expensive mistakes, but the earlier they learn and they have that experience managing money and blowing it, spending too much on something that they regret after the fact, the earlier they can take those lessons in and then, avoid some of the more expensive mistakes that happen later on as when you're in university or college and you're exposed to your first credit card or lots of other ways to, make mistakes.
Yeah. I know I made mistakes big time.
Of course, we all did. Me too.
Yeah, we definitely did not have a great relationship with money, like in my own family. And,
Hmm.
then when I, was an adult and just starting out making money, yeah, I just like, I had credit cards. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea.
Yeah, no one taught you probably, right?
No,
You didn't
no,
learn it in school, your parents didn't teach you, and you just kind of, like most of us, you learn on the fly through trial and error. And unfortunately, with credit cards, with the high rates of interest they carry, it's so easy to get into some trouble pretty early. So, yeah, I really like the idea of starting early and building on it and letting your kids make mistakes. But don't
yeah.
think that if you haven't started, that it's too late, because it's never too late.
Oh, I love that. And that's so my message when it comes to parenting too. Like it's just
Yeah.
never too late. So I love that. And here's the thing, if you weren't taught, and this is the biggest thing that happens in parenting in general, like if you weren't taught how to do this, just like if you weren't taught empathy, you weren't taught, how to
Hmm.
emotionally regulate, you can learn it later in life. And
Hmm.
your book, The Wisest Investment, it is the guide to helping you learn while you also teach your kids, right?
Exactly,
Exactly.
exactly. And that's how I tried to write it, because a lot of parents, I don't want them thinking like I can't teach my kids because I'm not doing a good job or I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
You can learn together. Because one of the other ways, like we talked about teachable moments, but one of the other ways to teach your kids is by being a good financial role model. And I know
Mm,
you've talked about being a good role model on other episodes with regards to other things, but when it comes to money, you're such an important role model for your kids, because they're watching and listening and learning from you and how you act around
oh,
money. So just because you might not be talking about it doesn't mean they're not learning from you.
100%.
So yeah, the first chapter really tries to help parents get their own house in order, so they can lead by example.
Yeah, that's such a good point because it's even your attitude about money, your energy about
Yes,
money. Every time you spend money, or it's just like, oh, it doesn't matter,
right.
right? Yeah, yeah, it could
They pick
totally.
up on that, or like, oh, I don't want to go to work today. Oh, like I have the Sunday scaries. I don't want to go to work on Monday. That's not great either, because your kids are kind of
Mhm.
picking up on that. And most of us want our kids to find something that will be fulfilling for them in their careers, and to do and to have purpose. So that's
Well,
such
and
a
I
really,
think, sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just
Yeah.
going to say, like, I think we really passed that crap down because like let's like I'm just made me think like, okay, so if I'm insecure about money, maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to really make my kid hustle to get a job right now and make sure they save and maybe drive my kid crazy, or make them go into an
Hmm.
industry where I know they're going to make money, and then it becomes all about money and it's not about happiness, or we're running our
Right.
own agenda and then they just reject us. So like it can go sideways for us just like anything can go. So we've got to really notice where we're at. And I think I'm going to just put my hand up and say, I have some trauma around money. I know that
Hmm.
when it
A lot
comes
of
time to
people.
do my taxes, I want to avoid it. And that's
Hmm.
what I've learned, thankfully, doing this work actually, is that's a trauma response. And we were like in my own family, not that this is about me, but like it was feast or famine.
Hmm.
Had money, we had lots of money. When we had no money, we had no money. And that was
Right.
very scary as a child to grow up
Hmm.
like that. It really
Hmm.
was. It felt very
Hmm.
insecure and we knew.
Unstable. Yes.
Unstable. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think with money, you want stability, you need predictability. Like, how do you budget? How do you, feel like you're in control? If it's one month, it's like you're living half the hog, and the other month, you're like worried about paying rent or your mortgage. So, yeah, I totally get that. And I think like what you're driving towards is my third strategy for parents, which is to think about using your values, your personal values, the things in life that are most important to you,
Yeah.
to help guide and prioritize financial decisions and set meaningful goals. And I know you're all about tools in the toolbox. So I have this values validator, which people can find for free on my website, robintaub.com. And it's so interesting to do that as a parent, and you and your partner can both do it and see where your values overlap, because it's meant to help you figure out what your top five values are. And then you can have your kids
Mhm.
do it too, because you might find that you're pushing something on your kids. Like, let's say security is your top value, but for them, it's adventure,
Yeah.
you know, or creativity or something. They don't want that steady office job. It just would be soul crushing for them, which is kind of the case with one of my kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, and that was hard because my husband and I are both accountants by training. Our daughter ended up becoming an accountant, and we have a son who's very creative and studied philosophy and became, was always into music. And it was, he just couldn't, it was not for him to be in a corporate environment. And now he's finally found what he wants to do. Does sound engineering and mixing for live events. And it's just perfect. And he's running his own business and freelancing. And it's just wonderful. And it worked out. It took a long time though. But luckily we gave him the space to figure it out because you can take these great personality tests online.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so insightful. And that also really helps you relate to one another in the family. Because I could see how his personality was extremely different. Because I'm like really, really conscientious, and he's not like that. So I have personality traits that make me good at being an accountant, and he doesn't.
Yeah, right.
So I like doing my taxes. Yeah, he's a philosopher, and I probably wouldn't be a good philosopher. So anyways, it's really those kinds of exercises are very like the values one's good, but the personality ones are amazing. And some of them are free. Some of them are just inexpensive. They're worth doing.
Yeah. And you can just Google that and you'll find them like Enneagrams and that sort of thing. Yeah. That's so great because really we don't get the kids that we want. We get the kids we need. Right. And like, he's a gift for you because he's so different than you. He's allowing you to open yourself up to
exactly
possibilities. And that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, for sure. I've learned so much from him about like lots of different things. And then, yes, for sure. But I mean, we are a lot alike in other ways, but it is a gift. It really is.
I love it. Okay. So this is my burning question. Okay. You're going to the bank machine and you take out money and your 5-year-old is like, can we just take out more? What do you say? Like, I'd love for you to give us some words to say when our kids are asking us money questions, like where does money come from?
Especially that one.
Yeah.
Where does money come from? Like a hole in the wall. And like so many parents, that's like every kid says that to their parent, just punch in some, just punch, let's go to the bank machine, punch a few buttons and let's see what comes out. So especially a 5-year-old, again, age appropriate, you have to explain that it's kind of like a piggy bank because if no money goes in, no money comes out. Now, a little kid doesn't work, obviously, but they do earn money for birthdays or holidays or tooth fairy visits, right? So they understand what it means to like have money. And then if they have a piggy bank, maybe a multi-slotted one, they know what it means to have to make choices. So that's just, I think even a 5 or 6-year-old, you can explain to them, okay, well, if you're working, like if you have a job, if you have a business, well, this is what I have to do to put money in my piggy bank, which is the bank machine. I'm an accountant. And what does that mean? Well, I help people understand their finances for their businesses or or help people file their taxes. And then you're like, well, what's taxes? So you can kind of explain like, well, look at all this stuff we have. Like in Canada, you can go to the doctor and we don't have to pay. And that's because we pay taxes, or we have policemen or firemen that, help protect us because we pay some of the money we make to them. So there's just, again, so many teachable moments. But I think it's trying to explain to them that if no money goes in because if you're not making money or earning money, then you can punch as many buttons as you want, but nothing's going to come out. Or you're going to go into overdraft, but that's a whole other conversation.
Let's not
go into debt.
Heads explode.
Not for the 5-year-old, but maybe for the 12-year-old, like, again, what age is your child at? Like, they'll be able to understand certain concepts better as they get older.
Yeah. So how do you graduate from the hole in the wall, which is so funny? I mean, I'll never forget. Well, actually, okay, sorry. I was going to go somewhere else, but I want to go here. Here's the thing. Money is sometimes not even used. Like we're not even using paper money.
I know.
So then how do we even explain that? It's almost like it's, I don't know, like a story. It's intangible.
I know. It's, well, that's why I was saying earlier that you should really start with kids with actual cash, with little kids. Because it's tangible. It's concrete. And, our Canadian money is fun. It's colorful. It's got historical figures on it. It's got geographic places across the country. The toonies and the loonies that you mentioned are also interesting and unique. So with little kids, you can play counting games. You can make change. If they're coming with you grocery shopping or anywhere where you pay in cash and get a receipt, they can count the change. You can start letting them do little things, handing the money over, getting it back. So it still starts with actual cash at that young age. But obviously once they graduate, let's say they're preteens and they open their own bank account, they get a debit card, then they're going to be starting to use, digital means of payment.
Yeah.
So that's when you have to explain to them, what is a debit card? It's buy now, pay now. Everything comes out of that account right away. How's that different from a credit card? They don't have their own credit card yet, but they see you using one, or they see you using Apple Pay or something like that on your phone. So you have to explain that's really different. And again, we said that's where people can get into trouble. That should really be like how to use a credit card responsibly is a really important money talk to have. So kids really understand, like, you can use it a whole bunch of times, and then at the end of a month, the total gets added up, and you want to try and pay off the entire balance on the due date. Otherwise, it gets expensive. So you can talk about the minimum payment and all that.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you talk about credit cards? Do you say, look, you're using them to really build your credit so that later on when you want to buy a house, you can get a mortgage, like, or you want to buy a car and you're going to finance the vehicle.
Or
yeah.
Absolutely. Like your credit, using credit responsibly will help with all of that. But with teenagers, it's even a little more immediate, which would be if they're looking for a job. So some employers will check a prospective employee's credit score as a sign of responsibility, or a landlord as well. If they're even renting an apartment, they will check your credit score. So it's important to start using credit responsibly once you have the ability to get your own credit card when you turn the age of majority. But unless someone sits this teen down and explains to them, or they watch a reliable TikTok explaining how it works, lots of kids think they get a credit card and it's like free money, just spend. They don't realize 4 weeks later there's a big bill coming due. And if you don't pay it on time, as I said, there could be penalties, there could be interest if you're making just the minimum payment. So just explaining that really like very, very specifically, and even reading, on your credit card, it will say, it will take X years and Y months to pay this off if only the minimum payment is made. So explain that to them, because something that you buy that you can't afford and ends up costing a lot in interest if you only make the minimum payment.
Yeah. And I think it really speaks to how we are so impatient and we want what we want now. And and credit is just not the answer for that, right? We've got to be patient. We've got to teach our kids that big time. And, the other thing that I wanted to add is that I mentioned my son has his first job. And super proud of him for him making money. And it's definitely a process to explain to him how to, take his paycheck and, where it should go and that sort of thing. And so a couple of weeks ago, he said there was a game that he wanted, and we're okay with him spending his money on gaming, even though we do, want him to, we take it right now, even though I know I should get him to do it. But anyway, now that I've talked to you, now I know that I need to do that, or he needs to do that for himself. But anyway, we're fine with him taking the money to buy the game, but the game that he wanted was only on a PlayStation, and he doesn't have a PlayStation, so he's looking at PlayStation 4, which is where we're at, I think, right now. And he's like, it's 800 or whatever. And so he was really bummed about it. And I said to him, hey, bud, you know what? There's actually other options that we have that could cost a lot less money. He doesn't have Facebook, but I said, look, we could look on Facebook Marketplace. I'm happy to help you with that. You can get this for a fraction of the cost. Would you be interested if it's secondhand? And he's like, yeah, definitely. So it was a really great exercise for us to go through where he was with me while I reached out to people while we negotiated a price, while we scheduled
Mhm.
the pickup, right? And all of that stuff. And I said, look, this is this one. Do you want to offer him less? Do you want to, is this okay? This one comes with games, but if you're not going to play the games and you might not want to, like, all this stuff, right? And it was a really great experience. He ended up getting his PlayStation. He got his game, and it was for less than the cost of a brand new PlayStation. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, that's a great story. And that's a great example of a teachable moment. My son was also really into gaming when he was a teenager, but this is like 10 years ago or more. So games were physical. Like went to
You
eat
had to buy
EB games. Yeah, you had
yeah.
to buy them. And I remember him saying to me, like in hindsight, he used to buy them as soon as they came out. And then he realized like if he just waited a few weeks and they were used, he could get them for so much less.
Oh, they
So just
depreciate immediately.
yeah. So just making those kinds of mistakes and then just smartening up for the next time, but being involved, because if you had just gone out and bought that for him,
Oh,
like even if you had gone out and bought the used one and done all the negotiate, like he wouldn't have learned anything. Now for the next time he wants something big, he has the skills. You've taught
yeah.
him what to do because negotiating, like it's in the book too. Like there's lots of skills that teens need when it comes to spending, to spend because they are going to spend, let's be realistic. So they
Yeah.
need to spend smart and waiting for sales. I mean, it's Black Friday today as we're recording this.
Yeah.
So just, making sure you shop things around and we're living in a time of record inflation and rising interest rates, and we have to make sure we stretch our dollars as much as possible.
Yeah, and I
Kids
think
too.
that's a topic that's hard to explain. And can you take a moment and actually explain
Yeah,
to me? No,
sure. I'm
I mean,
happy to.
explain to the parents listening so that they can explain to their kids what inflation is actually explaining to me. Um,
Yeah, I will. It's the rate of at which prices accelerate.
yeah.
So prices are going up by 8 to 10% right now, month over month or even year over year, depending on how they measure it. So if you just look at something that was, let's say, $100 before, at a 10% rate of inflation, that thing is going to be 110 now.
Mhm. And,
So,
and
and,
it's
and
about
another way to look at it is like your purchasing power has been eroded. Like, so if you're just still making $100,
yeah.
now you can't afford that same item. So it's really, it directly impacts affordability.
And that's dangerous because if it's $10 more and then you want to put that $10 on a credit card, that's not smart, right?
Well, yeah, people use credit, as you say, to bridge a gap because they don't have essentially if you're using credit all the time to fill a gap, you're living beyond your means. You're spending more than you're making. And
Mhm.
as you said before, there's this pressure because we live in a world that stresses instant gratification and everyone's impatient. And delaying gratification is a really important skill that we want to model and teach our kids because it's just the ability to set goals and wait for rewards, and it is correlated to better outcomes later in life as well.
Yeah.
So, even just again knowing what your values are and setting goals that are tied to those values because those are important to you and they're compelling and motivating really helps. So, even if it's just something simple like an Xbox that your child really wants, there are ways to like sit down and make that like a goal with specific steps that they can take to achieve it.
Mm. What I really like to do is I really like to talk about it as it's happening. Like, wow, it
Mm-hmm.
really is expensive. And so this is what we're doing. We're actually, we wanted it this month, but we're going to wait till next month
Yeah.
because it has gone up in price. And so when we talk about inflation, we're talking also about supply and demand, right? And we're talking about how
Well,
supply chain is
it's a cause. It's one of the causes of inflation, of what's pushing prices up. So when there's more demand than supply of anything, then prices go up. It's like like microeconomics.
Mhm.
Prices are set where the supply and demand curve intersect, and when
Mhm.
demand starts to go up at all levels, then prices go up. So there was a lot of pent up demand during the pandemic, and when
Mhm.
we couldn't go out and do things, and now that's showing up in higher prices for travel and for concerts and for eating out and all these things. And then you were saying supply chain. So again, if supply is restricted,
Mm-hmm.
then that also causes prices to go up. So it's such a deadly combo when it's excess demand meets restricted supply. That's when prices just go crazy. So
Yeah.
that's why and it's hard once prices start to go up. It's sticky. It's certain categories. It's hard for them to come down. And like normally the rate of inflation is about 2 to 3%. That's what the Canadian Central Bank aims for. And we're talking like 8 to 10, which is, yeah, like, so you see it if you walk into the grocery store. Like my daughter texted me, she's like, those Kraft singles are like $10 a package. And I'm like, that floppy cheese, that orange floppy cheese, that's 10. Like it's nuts. Like
Yeah.
it's so visible.
One of the things that I noticed is sometimes we'll buy like the no-name brand of chips, and they were like $1 for a 200-gram bag, and it's $2 now. Like it's really
Yeah,
100%.
and that's not even 10%, because 10% they'd only be $1.10. That's
Exactly.
double. That's like 100% inflation. So yeah, and then there's shrinkflation. You're probably noticing maybe it's the same
Yes.
price, but it's in a much smaller package. There's skimpflation, where the quality of something has really gone down. So they don't want to raise the price because they know consumers are sensitive. So they'll just kind of skimp on the quality. There's also greedflation, which is like, this concept that companies are taking advantage of the fact that prices are generally going up. And if they can get away with it, they will raise their prices. So I'm sure, our kids that are out and about, preteens and up, they're noticing it, because even the things they probably buy, the corner store, whatever, has gone up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've really, really noticed it. And I noticed too that there was an article about Amazon Prime Day, and
Yeah.
actually some of the advertised prices were price increases, not just screaming deals. So
Yeah. Or it's on sale, but it's still more than it was a year ago.
right, right. Oh, yeah, you've got to
I
be a
know.
savvy shopper, and I think that's a part of what you're saying, right? Is know your
Yeah.
prices, know when the sales are on, know what goes on sale, what doesn't go on sale.
Yeah, and model that for your kids and talk about it
Yeah,
while, like you say, while it's happening. And then,
yeah.
another thing that this brings up really is needs versus wants. So
Ooh,
that's a really
yeah,
important thing to talk about with your kids, because,
yeah.
it's especially teenagers, they get kind of self-centered at that phase, and or even young kids, they don't appreciate that as a parent, you're running a whole household and a budget that is much more than just that, their own needs and wants. So you have to make sure that you're, paying your rent or your mortgage, that you have enough money for food and gas for the car and all these needs before we can start even thinking about the nice to haves.
Yeah. So for anybody listening, I think, inflation is such a hot topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
Whether obviously you're talking about Canadian inflation, but it's mirrored in the United
Everywhere.
States. Yeah, everywhere.
Europe, it's even worse actually because of
Oh
the
my
energy
gosh.
issue.
And you
Yeah,
think we're paying a lot for gas here? Never
it's
mind Europe.
Europe.
It's outrageous. So
Exactly.
how do we reconcile that with our kids and talk about when
Mm-hmm.
that's going to end, when that's going to get better? Because prices don't necessarily come down. Once they're up, they're kind of up, aren't they?
They can be sticky. Depends. Obviously, gas, you see it's very
Oh,
volatile,
yeah.
it goes up and down. That's kind of different, but it's hard to imagine some of these grocery prices going back to what they were, unless again, supply starts to normalize, demand starts to normalize, and then prices may normalize a little bit. Um, I mean, right now that, like, this is getting a bit technical, but the Bank of Canada and in the US, the Fed, it raises interest rates to try and
Mhm.
cool the economy. Um, while they're still doing that, like they will kind of slow that down or stop it altogether once they feel like inflation is under control. So that's kind of how we'll know. When they
Right.
stop hiking rates, then we'll know that they feel that inflation is under control, and then it'll probably start to show up in our day-to-day lives, because we'll start seeing prices like not go up every month by 8 to 10% and stay the same or even maybe fall a bit.
Yeah, it really is such a complicated it's such a complicated process to understand
It
understand
is.
how interest rates affect those go up, well, then we can buy even less, which is the whole point. So then the demand is not as much. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's macroeconomics, it's microeconomics. And again, that's probably not age appropriate information to share. I mean, unless your kid is like in university and they're studying this kind of stuff, and you can maybe have an interesting discussion with them about it. But I think there's always a way to bring any topic into plain language. And that's kind of what I've tried to do. For sure, I've tried to do in the book, but any financial content I create with my clients, we always try to put it in a language that anyone can understand, because what's the point of using all this fancy terminology and jargon if people just don't understand what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So I feel like in the book, I've really tried to make it accessible to parents, as you said, so they can learn along with their kids, and it's all explained in very plain language.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. As someone who is so ignorant to all of those things, not necessarily by choice, but as an adult, I could definitely do better and learn more. Yeah. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And the book is The Wisest Investment. It is teaching your kids to be responsible, independent, and money smart for life. What a gift to give your family and your kids, and do it without any shame. Do it without judging yourself, right? I think that's really important. And you can also be honest and say, yeah, you know what, dad and I, or mom and I, or whatever, we didn't know as much as we know now. And we did make some mistakes. And, we want to save you from making those same mistakes too, or however you want to say it.
You got it. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And don't wait, start today, start tomorrow. When you think about the teachable moments, like your Xbox story is such a good example. I'm sure your listeners can think of so many examples in their own lives where their kids are asking something or they're doing something together, and just, take a beat and try and teach them a little something about money.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely important to have that talk to take advantage. I love it so much. Thank you so much. And
My pleasure.
You have a tool for us in the Parent Toolbox, which of course is www.parent-toolbox.com. It's a free membership, and it's updated every single week with beautiful experts like Robin Taub's the financial role model self-assessment. Tell us what that is all about so people can download it from the toolbox.
Yeah, I hope they will, because it's a good one. As I mentioned, one of my strategies is to be a good financial role model and lead by example. But a lot of parents don't even think about what messages their behavior is sending and what kind of role model they are. So this is 18 questions about your financial attitudes and behaviors that you answer as true or false. And it's just trying to help you get a feel for the kind of role model you are and the kind of role model that you can be.
I love that. That's so great. Well, thank you so much for that. Again,
it was such a great discussion, Robin. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I just want to let people know that if you want to find more about Robin, she's at robintaub.com, which is ROBINTAUB.com. And you also have the website for your book, which is thewisestinvestment.com.
Exactly.
And where can your book be found other than on those two sites?
Amazon. Is the long and the short answer. Yeah. So there's a paperback and an ebook, and yes, it's available on Amazon.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really love talking to you. And
me too.
I've learned.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, so much. This is just such an important topic, and it really is something we do that is really crucial in parenting. We all want the best for our kids, and these are the kinds of conversations that help for them to live lives that, where they can really thrive. Money is a part of that equation, whether we like it or not. So we've got to have these conversations. So thank you for helping us. Thank you for helping me. And I can't wait to dive into that self-assessment, because I'm going to take it too.
Okay, good. Thank you again.
Thank you for listening to this edition of my podcast, Parenting Our Future. I'm parent coach Robin McMahon, and if you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with someone who you think might also need to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe, and if you like my work, I'd be grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating. For those of you who like my content and want more, visit me at yellingcurebook.com to get your copy of my book and to find other resources to help you. Until next time, I am wishing you and your family peace and connection.